Please join us in a Tenebrae, which means darkness, symbolizing the approaching darkness of Jesus' death. When it was evening, he sat at table with the 12 disciples, and as they were eating, he said, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me." And they were very sorrowful and began to say to him one after another, "Is it I, Lord?" He answered, "He who has dipped his hand in the dish with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Is it I, Lord?" And Jesus said to him, "You have said so." I remember this shadow of betrayal, and I wonder, have I ever contemplated betraying my friend?
Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter declared to him, "Though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Truly, I say to you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples. I remember this shadow of desertion, and I wonder, when there's trouble, do I run?
And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if thou art willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. I remember our Lord's agony of soul in the garden, and I wonder in times of tough decision, do I have such agony of soul to know and to do the will of God?
While he was still speaking, there came a crowd, and a man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, "Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" Then Jesus said to the chief priests and captains of the temple, who had come out against him, "Have you come out against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness." I remember Judas's betrayal, and I wonder, have I ever betrayed someone I loved, or some cause in which I truly believed?
Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. Peter followed at a distance, and when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a maid, seeing him as he sat in the light and gazing at him, said, "This man also was with him." And a little later on, someone else saw him and said, "You are also one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." And after an interval of about an hour, still another insisted, saying, "Certainly this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are saying." And immediately while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the words of the Lord, how he said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. I remember Peter's denial, and I wonder, have I stood by my friends in trouble, or has my loyalty been only in fair weather?
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and plaiting a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and put a reed in his right hand, and kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spat upon him, and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of his robe, and put his own clothes, and led him away to be crucified. I remember the mocking and the scourging, and I wonder, have I made fun of others? Have I been part of scourging which denies a man's dignity by my silent witness in today's world?
Now at the feast, the governors were accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted, and they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Who do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy they had delivered him up. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the people to ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor again said to them, "Which of the 2 of you wish me to release to you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" They all cried, "Let him be crucified." And he said, "What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." I remember the mob crying, "Crucify him." And I remember Pilate washing his hands of responsibility, and I wonder, have I ever been a part of a mob which acted by emotion and done things I would never have done alone? And have I ever been guilty of shirking my responsibilities?
Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place which is called the Skull, they crucified him, and the criminals, one on the right and one on the left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And when the soldiers had crucified him, they took his garments and made 4 parts, one for each soldier. The of his tunic, which was without seam, woven from top to bottom, they said, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see whose it shall be." One of the criminals who was hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, and we, indeed, justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds, but this man has done nothing." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingly power." And Jesus said to him, "Truly, I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise." I remember these 2 words from the cross, and I wonder if everyone was against me, and I was dying, although innocent, would I ask God to forgive them and take the time to worry about the man dying next to me who deserved it.
Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing near, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." And to his disciple he said, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, this disciple took her to his own house. I remember this word from the cross, and I wonder, do I care enough for my loved ones and plan what is best for them?
Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? I remember this word from the cross, the cry of loneliness, yet of faith. And I wonder, when I am all alone and everything seems lost, do I, even in desperation, continue to trust in God?
Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said, "I thirst." A bowl of vinegar stood there, so they put a sponge full of vinegar on hyssop and held it to his mouth. When Jesus received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. I remember his death on the cross, and I wonder, do I realize he died for me, just as hundreds of martyrs, faithful witnesses of the past, died for me?
Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly, this man was innocent." And all the multitudes who assembled to see his sight, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the woman who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance and saw these things. I remember this word from the cross. Jesus is dead. What have we done? I wonder, would I have recognized in that moment the presence and activity of God expressed in human form for me? Would I have acknowledged my sin and experienced God's love? Like the centurion, would I have said, "Truly this man is innocent," and beat my breast like those people returning to their homes?
Amen.
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 Amen.